First human photos. For many years, scholars believed this 1848 photo taken in Cincinnati was the first ever photograph of a human, showing two ghostly figures retrieving water from the Ohio River during a deadly Black Cholera epidemic that claimed between 5 to 10% of the city's population. Shortly after the photo was published online, however, an anonymous user identified a much older Louis Daguerre photo that disputed this theory. The anonymous user found a photo taken in Paris, France in 1839 that shows a recognizable human form in the bottom left corner. It appears as if the gentleman was having his boots shined. The place is Boulevard du Temple, which seems eerily empty. The location was a busy center of activities, with many shops and cafés. It was later nicknamed Boulevard du Crime due to the dramatic plays showing in theaters nearby. Photo exposure took 7 minutes, so while the streets appear empty, traffic moved too quickly to register. The gentleman, however, held his position long enough for the camera to capture his silhouette. And like every Daguerre type, the picture is inverted. 5 years after the photo was taken, Paris experienced several renovations under the orders of Napoleon III. Parks and open spaces replaced the narrow and dark medieval streets, making this photograph an invaluable memory from 19th century Paris. Even though the only visible figure is the gentleman on the lower left, the shoeshine boy can also be vaguely discerned. Moreover, a closer inspection seems to reveal traces of other characters, such as two women near a pram right by the gentleman and a child gazing through a window in the front building. Unfortunately, the only photographic plate was only 6.5 by 8.5 inches, making it challenging to recognize more details. Still, the Paris photo seems to be the first ever sighting of a human captured in the medium. First hoax photo. Hippolyte Bayard might deserve credit as the inventor of photography, if only a friend had not convinced him to delay the announcement of his invention to the French Academy of Sciences in 1839. Bayard was usurped in history when Louis Daguerre first showed his photography process to the Academy, earning huge acclaim. In protest, Bayard staged a creepy photo with an even creepier message. Hippolyte Bayard, whose early image of Montmartre's windmills is seen here, was greatly irritated when Louis Daguerre was recognized as the father of photography. Quote, "I have seized the light. I have arrested its flight," Daguerre wrote to a friend in 1839. Irritated by the injustice, Bayard staged a photo that would become the first hoax photograph in history. He titled it "Self-Portrait as a Drowned Man" to convince people he had taken his own life. In addition, he wrote a darkly humorous passage accompanying the picture. Quote, "The government, which has been only too generous to Monsieur Daguerre, has said it can do nothing for Monsieur Bayard, and the poor wretch has drowned himself. Oh, the vagaries of human life." Bayard's work would not go unnoticed. He eventually sold his process to the French Academy of Sciences and purchased better equipment. Moreover, he held the first public photographic exhibition in the world in 1839. The inventor continually experimented with photography, capturing plants, urban landscapes, and portraits. He became a renowned photographer and developed what became known as combination printing, using two negatives to properly expose the sky and scene. The method would be applied for decades to come. Bayard also founded a photographic society and traveled across France to document architectural monuments at the request of the Commission des Monuments Historiques. In the end, not only did his revolutionary photographic discoveries make history, but also his unique sense of humor. First underwater portrait. Louis Bouton was a French marine biology professor at the University of Paris. His quest to document sea environments led him to develop the first underwater camera with his brother Auguste. The design of the flash proved particularly challenging, with the first iteration prone to explosions. Eventually, in 1899, Bouton captured the first known underwater portrait. Louis Bouton was a professor at the University of Paris. He spent many months traveling Australia, documenting unknown species. He was later assigned deputy head of the French exhibit at the Melbourne International Exhibition in 1880. Bouton was captivated by underwater life, and in 1886, his passion drew him to learn to dive. With the help of his brother Auguste, Bouton developed the first underwater photographic process in 1893. The photographs were taken on a dry plate, and the exposure below the surface would take as long as 30 minutes to capture a satisfactory image. The creation of his visionary photographic rig involved an alcohol lamp on top of a barrel filled with oxygen. Bouton then developed a rubber bulb that blew a puff of magnesium over the flame to create the flash. An early design calling for the use of a wooden beer barrel would render the camera immobile, and the flash's first iteration was prone to explosions. Bouton eventually invented the first underwater flash bulb and used carbon arc lights for illumination. This eerie photo of a man in a primitive diving suit, suspended in water and holding his breath, is claimed to be the world's first underwater self-portrait. According to several sources, Bouton captured it at a depth of 10 feet, using a watertight wooden camera housing in 1893. Bouton still desired to take his photography ever deeper, and worked on several inventions to generate artificial light for exposures, including the development of massive flash photography rigs that use oxygen-filled kegs, alcohol flames, and magnesium powder. Bouton may have hit the pinnacle of his work with this other photo, presumed to have been lit with battery-powered arc lights. The portrait of Romanian oceanographer and biologist Emil Racovița is believed to have been taken in 1899 at a depth of 164 feet in Bagnols-sur-Mer. It is said that it took 3 men to carry the camera and that exposure took 30 minutes, sometimes leading to nitrogen narcosis. The pioneer's invention was such a success that it is possible to read the placard held by the diver, Photographie sous-marine. If you can't read it, try it upside down. First tornado photos. This ominous photograph, taken on August 28, 1884, is often miscredited as the first photographic documentation of a tornado, one that took at least 6 lives in what is present-day Howard, South Dakota. But it is another equally dramatic photo taken 4 months earlier that may be the actual first. Tornadoes have constantly threatened the Great Plains, but it wasn't until the late 19th century that most Americans were able to see one, at least on picture. The August photo, captured by F.N. Robinson, depicts a deadly debris cloud and 2 smaller funnels, known as satellite tornadoes, on both sides of the twister. But an image taken 4 months earlier in Anderson County, Kansas, captures the storm in its rope stage, as it was losing force and dissipating over the town. For 3 days, a massive storm had been making its way from Colorado into Kansas. On the evening of April 26, 1884, witnesses in Garnett reported a lengthy funnel descending from the western skies. But its sluggish pace caused only minor damage. Still, a lumber-loaded wagon was carried into the air, along with its driver and horses. The tornado moved for roughly 30 minutes to the northeast, allowing A.A. Adams to assemble his camera. The fruit farmer and amateur photographer was standing only 14 miles from the tornado when he took the picture. Although still debated, the Garnett photo's claim is supported by weather maps and storm warnings from the day. Adams knew his photograph had considerable value and attempted to sell souvenir cards and stereographs until Robinson's photo overshadowed his own. The South Dakota image was considered more dramatic, and the tornado had caused fatalities. It may not have been the first tornado captured on camera, but it was undoubtedly the most notorious. First lightning photos. American photographer William N. Jennings claims this 1882 photo, taken in Philadelphia, is the first ever depiction of lightning. After 2 years of running to the roof with his camera during every storm, Jennings finally took the stunning image. But others claim St. Louis photographer T.M. Easterly actually captured the first photo of lightning decades earlier. Dissatisfied with the way lightning was depicted in traditional paintings, photographer William N. Jennings was determined to document it in a photo. After several attempts, Jennings finally achieved the feat in 1882 because photographic emulsions were not sensitive enough to capture the phenomenon. During the process, Jennings used a box of more appropriate emulsions built by pioneer filmmaker John Carbett. Scientific American magazine claimed that the device had an innovative, quicker lens capable of registering, quote, the dazzling stream of electric light. Still, Others claim the actual first photographic records of lightning were captured by Thomas Martin Easterly in 1847, employing the daguerreotype process. But his original plate got lost, and Jennings remains the first surviving photograph. Unlike Jennings, who aggressively publicized his scientific photography and self-proclaimed title of the first photographer of lightning, Easterly presented it as an exotic wonder in his gallery, along with notorious robbers and murders. Jennings gained notoriety in 1885, when his photograph and many others were published in Scientific American. He would continue capturing lightning photographs for the next 2 decades. If you like these stories, make sure you subscribe to our channels and stay tuned for more. And please let us know in the comments below if you know of any other unique first photographs.